In an interview late last week with Eric Bolling on Newsmax, and I know, yeah, sure, I'm a couple days behind this, but I was out of town for a couple days, so trying to get caught up on things that are important, and I felt this was important enough to talk about. So Friday evening, on Eric Bolling's program on Newsmax, Donald Trump Jr., who had just been hit with his $4 million verdict in the fraud trial, so he himself has to pay $4 million, his brother's got to pay $4 million, and then, of course, Daddy and the company have to pony up, roughly $350 million. But anyway, Junior goes on Eric Bolling's program where he talks about the ruling in a way where he almost seems proud of it. He's acting like what they did for the banks by defrauding them was somehow a favor to the banks. Listen to this exchange. Eric Bolling starts it off by saying, quote, "The judge, Ingeron, had about a 70 or 80 page ruling, and in it he said, Trump showed no remorse. And I'm thinking, no remorse because no one was injured. This was a victimless crime. But somehow he's attaching his massive judgment to Trump not showing remorse." Now, before I read you Junior's response, let me go back to something Bolling just said. This was a victimless crime. Victimless is the first word. The second word is crime. So you're admitting that it was a crime, but you, because you're not smart, are unable to identify the victim. So you think it's victimless. But nevertheless, you just admitted, Eric Bolling, that it was in fact a crime. And aren't you talking on your program, on your whole network, really, all conservative media, that there's too much crime in this country? We need to hold criminals responsible? I mean, you admit it's a crime, so there are some crimes that we should just not punish people for, according to you now? Interesting. Either way, Junior responded, "Yeah, I mean, it's not about remorse. There's no victim in this thing." The alleged victim, Deutsche Bank, a huge, probably close to $1 trillion institution, got on the stand, said they were paid back in full, said that we never missed a payment. They made hundreds of millions of dollars in interest on us, and they wanted to do more business with Trump, not less. Doing business with the Trump organization was a feather in their cap, not a liability. But again, that didn't matter. As it related to Eric and I, every single witness said we had nothing to do with the things in questions. Didn't matter. Again, as I said, even liberals said, they're going to release those guys because they had nothing to do with it. That's pretty clear. What liberals said that? Like, can you give me a list of the liberals that were like, Junior and Eric are not involved in this at all? Y'all were running the company at the time. I haven't heard or seen anyone on the left say that, Eric and Don Jr., they're just a couple of scamps. They don't know what's happening. Yeah, literally nobody has actually said that. Let's get back to what you said, though, because you, again, repeated that there was no victim here. No victim, no victim. There was, in fact, a victim. The banks that you defrauded were the victims. Well, they didn't lose any money. Actually, Junior, if you had shown up for the trial, or if you had been reading about what was happening at the trial, or if you were just an honest person, you'd know that they've already talked about the fact that the banks lost over $100 million in interest because you lied to them. The exact number, by the way, is $168 million that these banks were entitled to but did not receive. So you want to go on and on about how there's no victim. There is a victim. The banks were the victims. They lost $168 million because they should have charged you higher interest rates, but based on your assets that you had lied about and overinflated, they charged you less because they thought incorrectly that you were less of a liability than you actually were. That's how that works. That's the actual fraud. Oh, you have this much money? Then we're only going to charge you 5%. Oh, you only have this much money? All right, it's a little riskier for us, so we're going to charge you 7%. But they didn't charge you the high number, they charged you the low number, so they lost $168 million. So yes, there were victims. Yes, people lost money. Even if you made all your payments, you were still making them at a lower interest rate than what you should have been entitled to. But again, I can't get over the fact that you're almost bragging about this. You seem happy. I'm sure you're going to be happy not being able to do business in New York for a couple years. I think for you and Eric, it's only 1 year. For your dad, it's 3. But either way, that gives you plenty of time to do some research and find out just how badly you really did screw over those banks.